Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Let's Talk About That, a Union University podcast. My name is Fran Thomas, and today's conversation is with my best buddy, Ted Kluck. I deeply appreciate him, and I know that you will love this conversation. Thanks always for listening. We appreciate you so much. All right, Ted Kluck, this is a new day. This is a new season.
Yeah.
Season 2, let's talk about that. Ted, we're doing different things this year. Do you notice anything different?
Yeah, dude, I noticed there's a video camera on me, which I hate with a white-hot passion.
I do too.
But I'm doing this for you.
For
Union.
Okay.
You know, because I have a high view of both.
Yeah.
And we're gonna make it work. We're gonna see how it goes, huh?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna see how it goes. All right. Yeah. I felt like it was important to kick off this season with a beverage.
There you go.
So a shout out to Barefoots. They supply my daily coffee needs. I know that you go to Madero all the time.
Yeah.
So what is your go-to beverage there? And then I'm going to share what my go-to beverage is.
Yeah, I'm a hot drink guy. Because if
All
I
the
get
time.
all the time. Because if I get a cold drink, I just pound it and it's gone in like 30 seconds, and that's no fun, right? Because you want a little something you can be with for a minute.
Yes.
So I get a hot honey latte.
That's right. That is your drink.
That's a nice little time, dude. It's consistent. I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get drawn in by the fancy new flavors in Madero, and I don't often stay there to drink it. It's a bit of a bus station in there. A lot of people coming and going, so I usually just get it and go.
Yeah. Well, you're going to Madero because it's close to your office. I'm going to Barefoots because it's close to mine.
Yeah.
I am a vanilla rosemary gal. Now this is a seasonal beverage, and so I'm at the point in the season where I'm starting to get antsy and anxious and a little sad because it's not going to be here come the fall.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I'm sad and have to figure out what in the world to drink again. So
you gotta have a year-round go-to like me.
Yeah.
Now, what's your coffee shop MO? Are you making a little banter with the barista?
Every
or
time.
Just kind of okay.
Every time they know my name and they know what I'm going to order.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of nice to be a regular somewhere, isn't it? Did you ever watch the show Cheers in the 80s? I was a huge Cheers guy. It was my grandpa's show.
Yes.
I love it. It's my insomnia show. So when I can't sleep, I fire up some Cheers. And I always wanted to be known like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, at Barefoots, everybody knows my name.
I feel like they do. Yeah, that's a nice time.
Okay, so here we are, Season 2. Let's talk about that. You are the first guest. Well, you're not the guest. We're the co-hosts. We do this together. But this is audio plus visual. And I feel extra nervous, so I'm just going to pretend like we're in the recording studio, just talking like we always talk. Okay, so for people, Ted Kluck, that don't know who you are, what do you want us to know about who you are? Give us context, give us background of who you were, who you are, how you came to Union, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting way to frame the biographical question. Who do you want people to feel that you are, or whatever?
Right.
You know, I've been at Union 10 years. I'm a professor. I teach journalism here, and I'm a writer. So I still think of myself as a writer and a working writer. I think that, you know, for me is foundational. I never really dreamed of academia. This wasn't, you know, going to be in the cards for me, and I kind of happened into it really, and definitely happened into it at Union. But I'll tell you, I've really fallen in love with it. You know, I've grown quite fond of the academy, even the stuff I make fun of about the academy, because, you know, school is its own subculture and we have our own kind of grossly inefficient ways of doing things, and I make fun of all that. But I really do love it. And I think for my students, I want them to get that right, you know, where we're in this thing together. It's not perfect. We can have some ha-has about aspects of it, but I really have a lot of affection for it. So that's the kind of the professional piece. And then with writing, you know, I think just pursuing greatness in writing has been a lifelong passion. You know, I was an only child. I grew up in a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, and I had this deep desire to like make sure people knew that I existed. And in the early years that manifested in sports and football. I still consider myself a football player, even though I'm 48 years old and a coach. And, you know, so I still identify heavily with like that part of my life and that part of the psyche, the makeup. And then found writing late in my college career and got a chance to do a lot of books and some movie stuff and never looked back. so that's been the calling ever since.
Well, when you were in college, where did you go to college?
So I went to Taylor University.
Uh-huh. And what did when you went to Taylor, it was like your mindset was, I'm going to play football and who cares what my degree is in?
Kind of. Yeah, and it's embarrassing to say that because that's a really
Okay. That's a lot of people.
it's really dumb and short-sighted of
Yeah,
me to think
right.
that way. But yeah, I had plans to go to a bigger school. Had an injury my senior year of high school. Kind of ended up at Taylor by default, and was a little bit, I think, annoyed to be there. And I ended up getting injured again my freshman year, and that was, I thought, the end of football for me. So I was in a really kind of dark existential place, and by God's grace, he put some people around me at Taylor to redeem that experience for me. I had an amazing professor who showed a lot of interest in me and conveyed to me that he believed that I could make it as a writer. And that meant a lot, and that put a lot of wind in my sails. And then, of course, I met my wife,
Yeah.
KK,
Beloved.
the beloved KK, 27 years and counting. Met her at Taylor. She was a senior. I was a sophomore. We met with 3 weeks to go in her college career.
Oh,
Yeah.
my word.
Wild. Dude.
Yes.
It was the 90s. The rules were all different. Everything was different. It was so easy back then,
Yes.
right?
Nobody
So,
cared.
dude, I'm a sophomore. I'm kind of this big hulking meathead who was kind of depressed about losing the football thing. And she didn't know me, didn't know my name, didn't know anybody that knew me. She saw me in the cafeteria, made a little run, and we started talking that night. So she was at dinner with another dude.
Oh.
And
Plot thickens.
Yeah, I was at dinner with a bunch of my buddies, and they all left. I stayed for one last bowl of cereal. She came over and started talking. We've been talking for 27 years. So.
I love it.
And she was a writer, a good student. I wasn't. I was very mediocre. She was super dialed in and on top of stuff. And yeah, she kind of pulled me along in her wake, and she conveyed some belief that I could do it. And we just set about the journey together, taking shots, taking big swings at stuff, going on wild adventures.
Yeah.
It's been cool.
I love it. Okay, so what was the big break after you graduated?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we're going to skip time or if it was immediately thereafter, but
Yeah, no.
at some point you were able to say, oh, look at me. This is who I am and this is what I do.
Yeah.
What was that like?
There was time. There was definite time, and writing is a chip away at it kind of career. I don't think anybody rolls out of bed being amazing or, being famous or having a platform or whatever. So for me, I kind of took these jobs writing like junk mail copy for direct marketing and stuff like that in the 90s. And but in my mind, I knew I wanted to do my own stuff. So it was cool that I was getting paid for my words. But in the recesses, kind of in the margins, I had started this thing with some buddies called The Field Judge, satire for the discerning sports fan. It was like a sports onion.
Oh.
If you're familiar with the
I
onion.
love it.
And yeah, we loved it too. It was a blast. It was super lo-fi. Didn't even have a website. We sent it out via email.
Did we have websites back in that day?
We did, yeah. We had very primitive websites back in that day, but we did it via email, built this big subscriber list. I started spamming like ESPN and Fox and Sports Illustrated with it, and one day ESPN called and asked me if I wanted to write for the magazine. So that was the big break.
And so what in the
Yeah.
world? Are you just like minding your own business? Your phone rings? Did we have cell phones? Was this during cell phones? Or was this a landline?
Dude, this was at the beginning of cell phones when it was like a big brick.
Yes,
That,
yeah.
Like it came with a bag.
Yeah, a bag. Oh,
and
I
it lived
remember.
in the center console of your car. And
Yeah.
it cost like $83
Yes.
to make a 30-second call. And, it was wild. So
Yes.
I would go back to that, by the way. That was
Yeah,
magical.
it was. It
and
was.
you saw somebody with a cell phone, and you're like, man, they must be somebody.
Oh, they
must be
they must be
impressive.
important, and they
Yes.
must have a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, it must have come on a landline, or maybe it even came via email. But I remember feeling like, this is massive, and I have made it, and I'm going to be famous. And I had no idea how hard it was, and how that was just the beginning. But yeah, I started writing little bits of humor for ESPN the magazine back when that was a big deal, and the little pieces grew into bigger pieces, and then it moved online, and then 2005-ish, I got a book deal, which was wild. Ended up writing about a bunch of these boxers that faced Mike Tyson. So, and even the way that came about. So everything in my life, Fran, I can really look back and see that it was God's providence, right?
Yeah.
Like getting to Taylor, God's providence.
Yeah.
Meeting my wife, like I wasn't looking for her necessarily. I mean, the Lord brought that to me, and even writing, just being this meathead who went to college with no clue about anything, and I kind of fell backwards into it. I always loved reading. I always loved books. But I kind of loved it secretly because in the 90s you couldn't do both really.
Right.
You were either like a jock or
Right.
a nerd or whatever. So I kind of loved it secretly, and the Lord just kept bringing these opportunities, and the ESPN thing was a great opportunity. And then the book thing, I was in Orlando, Florida in July, which is miserable, right? It's like the surface of the sun there. Worse
Unless
than
you're
here
at
even.
Disney World in Orlando in July, and it's just the worst.
Yeah, oh, that's the worst.
That is the worst.
Yeah, really, that's horrendous. But so I was there. I was at my in-laws. I was kind of bored. There was this big dude across the street sweeping a sidewalk, and he looked like moderately familiar to me. And I'm an introvert. Like, I don't engage people unless I have to necessarily.
I
So,
thought you were going to say, I don't like people.
well, no, I do, but I don't often like initiate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think I was so bored and so hot and so like rudderless. I went across the
Will
street.
you be my friend?
Basically, I said, "Will you be my friend?" And as it turns out, this guy was Pinklin Thomas. He had been heavyweight champion
Wow.
in that period between Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. And he had
Wow.
fought Tyson, and I remembered seeing his fight with Tyson when I was a kid. They fought in 1987 at the Tropicana in Las Vegas. And, this guy was like a legend to me. And ended up hanging out, playing pool, watching fights.
Wow.
At the end of it, he said, would you write my life story?
Oh, my
And
gosh.
I said, yeah, of course. I knew nothing about writing books or book proposals.
How old are you at this time?
Man, like 26,
Oh, you're a
27. I was a
baby.
dude. I was a baby. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yes.
Literally going blind into all this. So flew home, Googled how to write a book proposal, literally, and I'm like, how hard could it be? So I figured that out and pitched it around, and we got a publisher to pick it up, and
Oh, my gosh.
off we went in the book world.
Oh,
So,
my gosh.
Yeah.
Is that, I know, well, out of the things that you've written,
Mm-hmm.
is that one of the things that you just love the most, you cherish the most, you're the most proud of because
Yeah.
of it was the first
Yeah.
opportunity? Or is there something else down the road that you're like, no, this is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll always be fond of it because it was the first, I
Yeah.
think. And there's something about working like that when you're young, where you're not cynical yet. You don't know how hard stuff is supposed to be, so you just kind of go for it.
Yeah.
And you go 100 miles an hour. And that's how that book was. It probably reads a little bit wide-eyed, a little bit worshipful,
Yeah.
a little bit young.
Yeah.
But
But that's okay.
I read that now, and I miss that version of myself.
Yeah.
So it allows me to kind of be with that guy a
Yeah.
little bit again, and
Yeah.
that makes it feel fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love the fact that you have this history, because literally I've said this to you before. I only know a couple of people in my life that have actually published something. So I find that absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And then how in the world do you land here at Union University?
Man.
And again, I've heard you tell different, versions of your story, but
Yeah.
I just think how kind of the Lord. He
So true.
literally keeps giving you opportunity.
I know.
And I'm not going to say that this is true for you, but how often we miss that. We can't see it for what
right.
it is until
Yeah.
we're, farther down the road.
Right.
But at what point, how did you go from that to Union? Because those are two different worlds to me. And
Man, it's crazy.
It's crazy. And what a shift. But I do love the fact that you're still a writer. You're still pursuing that. You're still all about that just as much as you are in the classroom.
100%.
But how do you make that transition? How did you find Union?
Yeah.
Did you love it when you got here?
Well, that's an
a
interesting question.
That's a hard
Yeah.
turn.
So the way it worked was, again, God's providence. It's a theme, right? So it's just thematic in that. So I did a handful of books about sports, like secular market type books, and then 2007-ish, I wrote a couple of books about the church with this guy named Kevin DeYoung,
Yeah,
who's done
heard
quite
of him.
well. Yeah, he's done well.
Aren't
for
you
himself.
glad that you helped him along?
I did really launch his career, didn't I? Not to take credit for it. I mean, the Lord did that, but I was a big part of it too.
You were.
Yeah. Let's not kid ourselves, Fran. So KDY and I did these 2 books about the church, and they did quite well. Really, they did better than any other books I've ever done, probably.
Wow.
So, yeah, they won some awards, and we got opportunities to go places and like speak about the books. And one of the places we got to go was Union.
Well, looky
So,
there.
yeah, super, super random. This would have been, yeah, like pre-2010. So I knew no one here. I didn't know this existed.
Yeah.
We flew into Memphis, flew in for one night. Tim Ellsworth.
Shout
who's
out.
our shout out Tim Ellsworth, our mutual friend here. Picked us up at the airport, drove us around, and Tim and I became friends. And so I did the gig, kind of forgot about Union, but Tim and I would stay in touch. We'd email a couple times a year. And so that's happening. And concurrent with that, I'm just on this crazy roller coaster of writing for a living, you know, where some days it feels really glamorous and it feels
Yeah.
like it should feel when you dream about it. And
Right.
other days it's like, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay the mortgage?
Right.
This is the worst. I'm a failure.
Right.
You know, and you're riding
Right.
that roller coaster, and like in some ways both things are true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So one year, in an attempt to like just have some more stable income coming in, I started adjuncting. So I started part-time teaching at a community college. I was basically teaching like the personal essay to a bunch of dudes who had just gotten out of prison because it was
Oh.
it was in a rough area.
Oh.
And that was part of the deal. Like these guys would get
Yeah.
out of prison and
Yeah.
you know, go and do the thing at the community college.
Yeah.
So so I did this. I agreed to do it, having no idea if I would love it, and I loved it.
Oh, I love
Loved the
this.
classroom. Loved the performance. It was the first time I had ever liked school. I didn't like school as an undergrad. Didn't like it at all. But but I loved it, and I kind of loved the theater of the whole thing. And in
Yeah.
a way, I was doing like professor karaoke because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'll get a cardigan and a leather bag, you know? So just kind of like having fun doing the karaoke of the thing. And then eventually I learned what I was doing.
I need to
And-
know what these guys said about you behind your back.
Oh, dude, they probably just roasted me. I probably just got body bagged behind my back. But they acted like they liked me.
Yeah.
you
Oh, I know
in-
they did.
in person. And I was really liking them, you know, and liking the experience. And I think that's foundational for me in the
Yeah.
classroom. Like the
Yeah.
students, hopefully at a deep level, they know that I like them,
Right.
you know, and we
Right.
throw words like and love and all that
Right.
around too loosely, but
But you genuinely do.
I really do. I get
I mean,
a kick
the
out of it.
heart and core of
Yeah.
who they are.
I get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and they surprise me with their insights and their
Yeah.
ideas, and we have these great conversations
Yeah.
in the classroom, and I've never gotten tired of that happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm doing this kind of adjunct thing. I'm doing a couple books a year just to like pay the bills and put food on the table, and I'm doing crazy projects like ghostwriting for
Mm.
NFL quarterbacks, and you know, that's a whole kind of disaster in and of itself. You know, you're writing a book for somebody else, and it was just wild. But it was again the Lord providing. I was almost Tebow's ghostwriter, which is a crazy story that I probably shouldn't tell on the air.
Yeah.
But
But you just said something, so.
yeah. It was wild though. I mean, it would have rained cashish on me for him if I had been Tebow's ghostwriter.
Man.
I wouldn't be here right now.
No, you wouldn't.
I'd be floating on a cloud of money is what I'd be doing. And you'd see that horrendous little book at Michael's when you checked out, and you'd know that Big T was getting paid.
Yes.
Anyway,
Oh, well, the Lord had different plans.
yeah, I'm so glad it didn't work out. Truly, it would have been the wrong thing at the wrong time
Yeah,
for me. But
yeah.
anyway, so I'm doing all this ghostwriting, and Tim Ellsworth.
I was going to say, which
friend.
Tim are we talking about?
Yeah, no,
Tebow
Tim Tebow
or
yeah,
Ellsworth?
Yeah, sadly, Tim Tebow didn't call with a truckload of money for me, but Tim Ellsworth called, and he had a much tinier, as it turns out, truckload of money for me. Not really a truck, but just a very small.
I have something to offer.
Right. I have a very tiny envelope of
Yes.
money for you.
Here's some fish and loaves.
Yeah, exactly. Here's some loaves and fishes and water. If you'll come down to Union.
Yeah.
And take a look at this journalism job,
Yeah.
dude, and kind of kick the tires on it. And man, again, kind of the Lord to know what we needed.
Yeah.
It was literally right place, right time in the sense that, you know, we'd been living in Michigan for 15 years, and I had just been suffering through these winters.
Oh,
These long,
die.
gray,
I would die.
desolate winters. You see the sun like 2 times in
Yeah.
6 months,
No.
and I was just in a bad way. And
Yeah.
so the idea of coming south to Jackson appealed to me. And
Might as well have been Miami, Florida.
oh my gosh.
I mean, you
it's-
know,
I
you're
mean,
like,
we're basically the Miami of West Tennessee. I mean, that's how people refer to it. Cosmopolitan. You know,
Absolutely.
I've been living in like on
Yeah.
like an ice floe for the last 15 years. Like, this is amazing.
me and my igloo.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we
you
are.
know, like, no, this is really good. And I mean, I grew up in a town with 2 stoplights in it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah,
this
you
feels
hit-
like
yeah,
Manhattan to me.
big time.
Yeah. So I just really loved it almost immediately. And I love my church dearly. I go to a church called Cornerstone. If people come here, if they come to Union, there's a lot of churches to choose from. But I absolutely adore it. I love it with the love of a child. That place, finding that church, eased our transition so much. You know, friends and fellowship in the Lord. The boys were young. I have 2 sons. One of them is about to be a senior at Union.
Cannot even believe it.
Crazy. But yeah, they were little when we came here, so we kind of got them settled with friends and hit the ground running doing this. And I love Christian higher ed. I do, because I think it's a unique moment to be with people. There are a lot of people here who need Christ and don't necessarily know they need Christ.
Right.
And I'll tell you, year after year, the Lord gives me opportunities to make much of him in the classroom and disciple people. And it's just worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
I love it. And I didn't want to come to a Christian college.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to go to a big school
Yeah.
and like be the salt and light guy at a
Right.
big place. But,
Right.
you know, the Lord had other plans.
Yeah. What is your favorite thing about the classroom outside of making much of Christ? You've got students, whether they are declared journalism as a major or not, you have students, a variety of students.
Yeah.
And a lot of times students are in your class because they've heard of you. You know,
Yeah.
you're that guy. Oh, take Kluck. That's what everybody calls you. Take Kluck.
Yeah.
Or they're in there because they've got to be in there.
Yeah.
But what is your favorite part? Is it the teaching? Is it the taking the person that's really not even interested in this and
Yeah.
helping them tap into some creativity they may not have? What is it about the classroom? Because you're so much more than a teacher. You're so much more than the professor. You're so much more than do this, here's your assignment.
Yeah, I appreciate
What
that.
do you love, just absolutely love, when the semester's over or the semester's beginning? What do you absolutely love about that space?
Yeah, it's a great question. I talk about it like I feel like we're in the increasing affections business, right? So kid comes to my class, maybe they don't like writing, maybe they don't like reading. And if I can get them to fall in love with something that we're doing, like whether it's a book that we read together or a piece that we read or something that they write, that's a buzz. That gives me a lot of juice. I think it always will. It's an exciting moment to see that happen. So that's kind of the teachy professional answer. But the real answer is I just enjoy chatting with people for an hour about stuff that I find interesting.
Yeah.
So the classes are really sometimes just this magical moment of a lot of interesting people in a room together making something, right? So everything we do in my program is very manifestly vocational. You know, we're not like navel gazing in there. We're making product,
Yeah.
you know, and we're making product for markets that exist in real life. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
But it's really just a bunch of cool people in a room having a magical conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it the most. And I get to kind of be the point guard. I
Yeah.
get to dish.
Yeah.
I get to be the ringleader and throw lobs to you if you
Yeah.
need to score conversationally.
Yeah.
And we all kind of get our touches. And it's
Yeah.
a great
Oh,
time.
it's a confidence booster.
Yes.
Because if you're sitting in the classroom and you're the introvert and I don't want to be there because this
Yeah.
isn't my major, but yet over time you have built relationship and trust and credibility with your whole class.
Yeah.
And then by the time the semester ends, you've got a student who feels, whether they want to do anything with journalism or not, they feel like I've been seen.
Yeah.
They're like, cheers. You
Yeah.
know, like they know my name. They know what I'm interested in.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's great.
It's so good. It's so valuable. It's
Yeah.
like you're teaching them something when you don't realize you're teaching them something
Yes.
outside of the craft.
Yes, that's so true. And I tell them all the time, there's a real market opportunity right now in writing, but really in anything for people who can talk and listen well.
Yeah.
Because we live in these, you know, highly mediated, disconnected, you know, worlds. And a lot of them, they didn't have the reps in high school
Right.
socially with talking and listening and stuff like that we had. So giving them reps, building their confidence with it, letting them have some joyful moments together. Yeah, it's just magical.
Oh, it's so
And I
cool.
never get tired of it.
Yeah, I don't get tired. I don't get tired of hearing about it. I hear about it all the time. Okay, let's talk about Cardinal and Cream.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cardinal and Cream. I remember when I first came to Union. You and I came about the same time-ish, I think. I don't know. I'm 2012. I don't know.
2015 for me.
Okay, so I remember hearing about Cardinal and Cream, and literally, when you're new anywhere, it's just so overwhelming. You're trying to figure out who all the people are. I didn't come from a higher ed background, so I'm just trying to figure out like what's a dean, who's a chair.
Yeah, right.
Like
You and me both. Yeah.
Like who are all these
Still
people?
learning.
Still learning. And so then I like realized, well, Cardinal and Cream is it's a magazine
Yeah.
that like our people put together. I literally remember one time thinking, do we have like a press here where it's printed on
Right.
campus?
Yeah.
And I just don't know where that is.
That'd be cool.
Was that in existence when you came, or did
Yeah.
you start Cardinal and Cream? And explain to everybody what Cardinal and Cream is and how amazing it is.
Yeah, Cardinal and Cream is a product of Union Journalism, so my program, and we do 2 nice glossy print magazines a year, so one in the fall, one in the spring, and then we do a daily online product. And for me, it's fun because I love magazines. I feel like I grew up in like the golden era of magazines where like your mom would take you to the grocery store in the 80s and just like leave you in the magazine rack. And
100%. That's so much of my
dude,
childhood.
I'm flipping through it. I'm looking at like Sports Illustrated and like guitar magazines and just crazy stuff, just like pursuing interest there in that moment. And I tell people often fondly, I would be functionally illiterate were it not for Sports Illustrated.
Hey.
My dad had that subscription, dude, and that thing would come
Yeah.
Thursday afternoon. I
Yeah.
would get it. I'd flip to the back page to Rick
Yeah.
Riley's column, and I really learned to read and write there. So I have this high view of magazines.
Yeah.
And so getting to do one twice a year that's a reflection of like where the students' heads and hearts are, and it's a reflection of like the kids that are at the top of my roster. So they compete. It's competitive. I believe in competition. The cream rises to the top, and then the staff who get those roster spots, they get the reward of putting together this magazine twice a year, and it's just a beauty. And they surprise me with what they come up with. And like I'm a decade in now, and it hasn't gotten stale.
No.
Because each one is a reflection of this new staff.
That's right.
So they get to do it. They get to work on long features and long voicey opinion pieces and all the stuff that we're repping up in practice. They get to go do it in the game, and it's magical.
Are you giving them any kind of guidance, like as you think about we're moving into this fall where there's, an election happening that you may or may not know anything about? Huh?
Yeah, no way.
But like, are you giving them guidance as to what you want them to write about, or is it completely their ideas? They're pitching them to you, and you're saying yes, no.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's primarily their ideas. I feel like I've kind of settled into this role of being like the dad in the room, and you know how like when you're a kid and dad drives you to the video store and he gets the credit card out when he needs to, and occasionally he says no and gives you a little guideline, but really he's just there to make sure you have a good time.
Yeah.
That's kind of my role.
Yeah.
So
I love that, and I love that they have the ability to really have control.
that's it, and they honor it.
Creative control.
And they know where my heart is. They know that I love Union, and I'm not going to allow anything crazy, but they don't even suggest it.
Right.
These are good kids with good ideas who love the craft, and they want to do a great product.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Okay, you're not going to say this, so I'm going to ask you this. Tell everybody how great of a magazine in regards to awards that you've won.
Yeah, a whole bunch.
A whole bunch.
So I stole something from Alabama football.
Oh.
Because I'm a football guy. I watch
Yeah.
all these documentaries and all these little deals about football. And Alabama in their meeting room, they have the walls covered with like all the accolades and all the awards that they've won, so that when people come in, they get a sense of the culture and they get a sense that they're a part of something bigger and something that existed before them and will exist after them. And it gives them a benchmark.
Yeah.
Because we want to feel like we're a part of a winning thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And moreover, there's always kind of been this feeling in like Christian media that like it's junior varsity.
Right. Yes.
And I hate junior varsity. I don't like the JV mentality at all. So like I got here, I wanted us to be winning in lots of ways, right? So I wanted to grow the program in terms of numerical and grow the fundraising side of it. And I wanted to make sure that the top of my roster could compete anywhere in the nation. So Syracuse, Northwestern, Columbia, some of these big journalism programs, I wanted to make sure that like what my best people were doing would be equivalent to like what their best people are doing. And so we compete, and it's relative, right? And it's all kind of subjective with writing awards, but we've won Best Magazine of the South at the Southeast Journalism Conference many times.
Many times.
We've won Best Feature Writer of the South a couple times, and we're competing against big schools: Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ole Miss. You know, big heavy hitters with like lots of budget and lots of resources, and you know, our kids are competitive there.
Well,
we got Best A&E Writer of the South for the first time this last year.
Looky there.
Yeah, so we're doing really good work that makes them really marketable, really competitive.
Yeah.
And the thing that I dig about it the most, I mean, we live in a fallen world, right? So nothing's perfect. There's no utopias, but we have so much joy in doing it together. You know, we travel, we go to this conference, we have all kinds of inside jokes and ha-has, and they get me to buy dumb stuff when I'm on the road, and
Because you're the dad.
Because I'm the dad, dude.
Whipping out that credit card.
Yeah, I'm the dad. I'm in my my cargo shorts, whipping out that credit card. You know, but it's good.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about this before we wrap this up. Let's talk about AI.
Yeah.
I don't have college students. My kids are grown and gone, but I'm fascinated by AI. If I literally said out loud yesterday, please nobody judge me for this. I said out loud, if that would have existed when I was a college student, you better believe
Oh my goodness.
I would have had AI write the whole paper
Sure.
and submitted it and not think a thing about it. I'm sorry. That's just the truth.
I know. I get it. Yeah.
How do you, as a writer, like this goes against everything that you believe. And so what do you do with this? How do you talk to your students about it? What is your belief in AI and writing all this work that no, the artificial intelligence should not be doing this?
Yeah, such a good question. And it's one that I've had to grapple with, because I can honestly tell you, I'm not a guy who gets excited about tech. Like, I'm not excited about gadgets. I don't love like science fiction, you know, and like thinking about the future. I'm a Luddite. Like, I'm an old school guy. I love a book and a typewriter and, you know, a record player. And I just like old things. So yeah, AI, there's a certain kind of like personality type that gets fired up about it and jazzed and like really intrigued. I'm not that person. But I knew, you know, kind of to your point, I knew that it would provide an opportunity for people to cheat. And it started to happen a little bit where I would just have these really obvious moments where, you know, you get the story back and it's really mechanical and really clunky and it sounds fake.
AI.
Yeah.
So you can spot it immediately.
Yeah, because I'm in the writing business.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in it for 20 years, 25 years. This is my life, you know.
So here, students, do you hear him say?
Well, and it's funny. So a couple years ago, it occurred to me, I better put something in my syllabus about this, you know, and talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's a chance to talk about a thing that it speaks to our relationships, right? So I've got this thing in my syllabus which basically says, look, you're going to be tempted to do this. I have a sin nature. I would be tempted to do it. But I said, please don't. And I say, please don't for the good of the relationship, right?
That's so good.
Because, you know, if you do that, I'll know, number one, because I'm in the business,
so
but
good.
also something will happen that will create distance between us.
We're cutting corners.
And we don't
cheating.
want that, right?
Yeah.
And I know it when it happens, because in my business, we're chasing style, right?
Yeah.
So if you come into my program as a freshman, you probably don't really have a writing style yet. And style is a function of both how you see the world on one hand and how you make sentences on the other hand, right? So those two things are constantly in play when you think about style. And so if you're letting AI write all your stories, you're not developing style.
Right.
And you're not giving audiences a chance to fall in love with Fran Thomas, the
Right.
writer, who's unique, who has unique perspectives and background and ways of seeing the world. All of that is off the table. So we no longer get to chase magic together. And moreover, the cheating has created a gulf. So I approach it relationally,
Yeah,
you know,
that's so good.
I think it's relatively effective. I'm sure for some of the assignments, they still sneak one by me from time to time, but I'm not, I don't know. I'm trying to see the long game of their spirits and their souls as more important than, you know, mizzling over some assignment. I didn't get into this business to like take
Right.
5 points off or whatever. I'm not that guy, right?
Right.
I hate the syllabus. I think about it for one day a year. We go through it, and then I disregard it, and I tell them to disregard it.
Yeah.
Like, really, this is just hoops to jump through, and I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
And it all gets done.
Yeah.
You know, we get through everything that's in there, but we
Yeah.
just do it at our own timetable
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that I think the older we get, there's something to appreciate about. We will go back to, well, I'm old. I just get stuck in the ways back there
Yeah.
from the 80s and 90s and 2000s, whether it's magazines or a
Yeah.
newspaper.
Sure.
And I don't necessarily think we're holding on to that thing, even though I'm all about
Yeah.
holding on to that thing.
Yeah.
Is the whole world going to be online one day and we
Right.
don't hold the thing anymore? I don't know. But what I hear you always say that I deeply appreciate is, we're going to do the thing, whatever the assignment, whatever we're talking the magazine, but you are so much more interested in the student, who they're becoming, their heart, what they're learning. When you talk about taking reps, and I have heard you say that so many times, and I find myself living in that mindset of, I've got to take more reps in this area.
That's it.
But so it's just, there's this journey, there's this beautiful process of becoming, of growing, of
Yes.
evolving, of transforming, to ultimately be able to do the thing.
That's right.
And your goal, as with anything, hopefully, I believe, here at Union, is that when they leave us, they're equipped
Yeah.
to do whatever that thing is.
That's right.
But they've also considered their heart, their lives, who they're becoming. And it's because of people like you in the classroom that are seeing them and hearing them and considering things with them. And I love that. And I think that's why students love you so much, is because you are so much more than just the thing called journalism.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think it's because it's so clear to me, Fran, that the Lord allowed me to do all that stuff
Yeah.
and put me here.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, there's a sense of I want to make the most of each day,
Yeah.
you know, and each assignment and each experience and each relationship, and seeing it as a gift from the Lord and seeing it as something He's allowing and ordaining. It gives purpose to the work. So assignments are still assignments, but there can be a little kernel of magic and joy, and we're making product. I mean, that's always going to be exciting.
Yeah.
My grandpa used to read the Chicago Sun-Times, which back in the 80s when he was around, it was this massive paper, right? It was like this thick, and he'd sit and smoke his Marlboro Reds and read the Sun-Times and drink coffee, and you know, that was magical. And I thought, man, you know, to write for something like that, that you're a part of people's lives.
That's right.
You know, and I think as a writer seeking to have an audience, you want to be a part of somebody's life, you know, and you want to be remembered that way and known that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ted, tell us about what do you have going on now? What is a current project that you are working on, that you're after, that you're hoping to complete? What's going on now?
Well, a fun one happened right at the end of spring semester.
Okay.
I had a French film company. They reached out. They wanted to acquire the rights to Facing Tyson, my first book, and they want to make a documentary. So
Shut up.
Yeah, I know, and it's crazy. It just dropped in my lap, which is great. And so I'm going to be executive producer on that and sell them the book rights.
Do I start calling you EP Kluck?
Yeah, I'm going to
Like-
start wearing a beret, and I'm going to have one of those canvas chairs and just carry it around.
What
with
is
me.
this process like? I mean,
Yeah.
how do they? What's happening right now? What
Yeah,
does this
dude, it's
even
crazy.
look like?
So documentaries have really boomed.
Oh, I love
with,
me a good documentary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love
with
it.
streamers and
Yes.
all that. So there's a big market for it. And, so there are people, I think, who wander to and fro looking for intellectual property that they can acquire the rights to. And with Tyson fighting Jake Paul in November and kind of the renewed interest in his story. And
Yeah.
he's always kind of an evergreen public figure. There's
Yeah.
always kind of interest in him. And they ran across my book. They liked it, which made me feel good.
Wow.
And yeah, we're gonna partner up on this thing, which means I get to like contact all those old fighters again, and
Oh my gosh.
so I'm catching up with these guys after 20
Yes.
years, which is really kind of a trip. It's
Yes.
wild. So
This is incredible.
and I've always loved fighters. I've always loved interviewing fighters. If you can't write about boxing, you just can't write.
Yeah.
So so it's going to be fun to take that journey again.
Wow,
with these guys.
that's
Yeah.
incredible. Bravo
Yeah.
to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, Ted, first
We did it.
episode, season 2.
Yeah, video.
On camera.
Here's the thing: we're gonna look at this, and we're gonna be tempted
Literally.
to like critique our own jawlines and stuff like that. Let's not do it. Let's just covenant not to do that.
Be kind, people. Be kind.
Yeah.
We would love to have you visit our beautiful campus. You can sign up for that online at uu.edu/campus visit. If you are ready to fill out an admissions application, we have a fee waiver code for you. Simply type in the word TALK, all capital letters, and you do not have to pay the fee. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode, a new episode of Let's Talk About That, a Union University podcast. We'll see you next time, Ted.
Love it.
Have a
Thanks
great
for
day.
having me.
Okay, goodbye.